Hey everyone, Elia here. I'm sorry for being absent lately. My dog Flip passed away recently and I've been grieving the loss of my friend of 13 years. I'm doing a bit better now and I will likely do an episode on grief soonish because I feel like I need to. But yeah, just wanted to let you know this is why I haven't been as active recently. I'm recording this because I did want to let you know as well that I'm giving online classes starting this January. I'll explain in a bit how to register for the class, which you can already find in the description, and I recommend doing so as soon as possible as I already had to open up a second class due to the amazing response that I've received so far as I've posted this on Blue Sky and Mastodon. But before doing that, I will tell you a bit about what will we be exploring in these 5 weeks. So first, the class is entitled Beware of Small States, an overview of Lebanon from 1975 to 2025. It will happen once a week, each Saturday starting January the 17th at 4 p.m. UK time for around 2 hours, although these can last longer if participants are interested. So these will be, as I said, every Saturday, January 17th, 24th, 31st, and then February 7th and February 14th, i.e. in 5 parts overall. As the title suggests, you will get an overview of Lebanese history and politics from 1975 with a focus on the so-called post-war from 1990 onward. And by the way, I will explain why I say so-called post-war. We will go beyond sensationalist headlines and shallow coverage and beyond simplistic top-down explanations for the country. Instead of a linear timeline of events, which you can get from Wikipedia anyway, you will get a messy one. After all, politics is not linear. Political actors in Lebanon, as elsewhere, evoke events from the recent or not so recent past as part of their politics in the present. In addition to this structured syllabus that I will get into in a bit, I will use personal stories and anecdotes as someone who grew up in that Lebanon of that same period in a very conservative and at times even far-right Christian environment, to explain how my own personal journey away from right-wing and politics and towards left-wing, even quasi-anarchist politics has helped me understand Lebanon better and hopefully will help you too. So I've organized a syllabus to follow the spirit of this podcast of the Fire These Times. That is to say, informal and accessible. Over the course of the 5 sessions, we will be covering Lebanon from different, albeit interrelated angles. At each step of the way, you will have readings and/or podcast episodes that you can check out, but you're not required to do so. I know folks are busy as is, so all you need to do really is to show up on the day of and do your best to engage and participate however you feel comfortable doing so. You can also just kick back and listen in. If you cannot make a session, I can always record an audio version of it and send it to you. And if enough people are interested but cannot do Saturdays, I can open up Wednesday sessions at 6 p.m. UK time. So you'll have to let me know. As I said, it is very informal. Okay, so in week 1, i.e. January 17th, entitled The Stories We Tell Ourselves About This Painfully Ordinary Country. That's the title I went for. We will look at some of the dominant narratives that have been passed on from one generation to the next about this so-called civil war, the period between 1975 and 1990, during which Lebanon experienced multiple wars in one. We will start with a detailed exploration of the ruling political classes of Lebanon through their main parties and ask the following questions. How do they deal with contradictions within them? How do they appeal to Lebanese nationalism, sectarianism, and xenophobia? And these, I think, will in turn help us ask the following. What are some of the dominant stories told by the Lebanese about Lebanon? In some sense, that's sort of the main question, but as you will see, I think they're all interrelated. In week 2, i.e. January 24th, we will get more academic-y. Don't worry though, this, it will only be that one time, and you don't really have to know anything in advance. That session has the very professional sounding title of, quote, 5 academic concepts that are easier to understand than they seem, end quote. These concepts are the following: sectarianization, bordering, wartime, the anticipation of violence, and the permanent or protracted now. The simplest way I can describe these, at least at this stage, is like this. Sectarianization is the process through which sectarianism is created and recreated. Bordering is the process through which borders, physical or otherwise, are created and recreated. Wartime is the temporality, i.e. the experience of time or the perception of time, whereby the past is quote-unquote activated to frame the present. Anticipation of violence, kind of what it sounds like, is the sense that violence is always around the corner in times of so-called peace. And all of these contribute to a sense that the present keeps on being extended, which is how we get this permanent or protracted now. It also has other terms, but we'll go with these for now. So I picked these as useful frameworks to understand how something as messy and contradictory as the Lebanese ruling class was able to keep a hegemonic hold over power for the quasi-entirety of our period of study, and how this makes them more vulnerable as well. We will look at examples of how the Lebanese system reproduces itself, and reflect on how the permanent now, that last thing that I just mentioned, became a core problem affecting Lebanese civil society, activists, organizers, and beyond, a problem which I think remains with us today. In week 3, i.e. January 31st, entitled "We Are the Children of the Children of War," end quote, which you may or may not recognize as the title of a recent episode that I covered with my friend, the Lebanese journalist Justin Sarhani, we will explore the post-war that never was, and the post-memory generation that inherited its traumas. Again, if you don't know what some of these terms are, it's quite alright. I will explain all of these things. Also hauntings, because of course I will talk to you about ghosts. Not the friendly Casper types, but more so the political hauntings that come out of untackled and untreated and undealt with pain, suffering, and trauma. Here is this kind of a synopsis for that session. The Lebanese wars officially ended in 1990, but there were two problems. I mean, among many, but two that we'll focus on. The first one is the Israeli occupation of southern Lebanon. It continued until the year 2000. The 2 decades in between included, so since 2000 and today, included a full-blown war in 2006, multiple escalations along the southern border, and of course the most devastating and so far ongoing war that started in 2024, and there's very good reasons to believe that this will continue into the future. So that's number one. Number two, the Assad regime, the regime that was ruling Syria until 2024, its occupation of the rest of the country, a de facto occupation, which continued until the year 2005. And even after 2005, there was a sort of a different type of, I wouldn't call it occupation, but certainly collaboration with the Assad regime, in which they continued to kill prominent opposition figures alongside the Assad regime's ally, Hezbollah, with the most recent victim being Luqman Slim in 2021. So we will ask the following questions, which are, I think, all interrelated anyway. So sort of like one main question in many questions, if that makes sense. If not, ignore what I just said. Did the wars ever end? If no, why? And why is it worth questioning this so-called post-war discourse in the first place? How does this relate to the international status quo vis-a-vis Israel, which continues to this day despite the genocide in Gaza? How did the Israeli and Syrian occupations of Lebanon, and I should say by Syrian I mean the Assad regime, not individual Syrians, in addition to the Assad regime's brutal crackdown of Syrians post-2011, influence Lebanon? And finally, how can a hauntological approach, those are the ghosts that I just mentioned, help us understand this so-called post-war? In week 4, i.e. February 7th, entitled "From Life in the Midst of History to the Collapse." You may recognize the first bit of that title from one of the episodes that I did with Lina Munzer 4 years ago now, I think, or 4 or 5 years ago almost. I.e. how did we go from the hopes of the 2019 uprising, which is the biggest that this country or Lebanon has seen in generation, or if not 2 generations, how did we go from that uprising to the horrors of 2020? Especially I'm thinking of the Port of Beirut explosion and the economic crisis that preceded it and followed. So we will go through 2 major protests that happened in the past decade. The so-called You Stink one in 2015, and the biggest one to date, the one I just mentioned, in 2019. I was actually one of the organizers of the 2015 one, and I participated in the 2019 one, so of course I will bring that to the table. And we'll try to ask the following questions. What were these protests about, and how did they differ from one another? Kind of a comparative analysis, if you want. We'll also look at the aftermath of the 2019 uprising, with a focus on what is referred to in Lebanon as the collapse. And here are the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic crisis, and the Port of Beirut explosion, as I mentioned, all of which occurred started within months of one another in 2020, and very shortly after the 2019 uprising started, which was in October of that year. And we will ask, how did we go from hope to despair in such a short time span? Finally, in week 5, i.e. February 14th, which I've titled Lebanon Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow, because I am very creative, we will have an open-ended final session in which we go through the past month. So the past 4 sessions. And depending on the interest of the class, and this will generally be true regardless of the week, we can also talk about current events and where Lebanon might be heading next. Here's how to register. If you're interested, it is pretty simple. You just send me an email at ayub@thefridays.com. That's Ayub, i.e. my family name, at thefridays, i.e. the podcast.com. You can also send me a message on Signal at ayub.02 because some asshole took ayub.01. Again, that's ayub@thefridaystimes.com and or ayub.02 if you're using Signal. I will send you the syllabus, which is just on a Google Doc, as well as all the required details, including how to pay for the class. Now comes the question of the fees, which is always not uncomfortable at all. I thought a lot about how to price the class, and I ended up sticking to $300, which I know may well be too high for many people. I apologize for that. If you can't afford it, get in touch anyway, please. The hope is that enough people who are able to afford it are able to do so that this, pay the costs, in which case I would be able to open up more spaces at lower rates. And a few for free too, if we manage. Eventually, hopefully, inshallah, I would love to be able to give free classes because I generally enjoy doing these, but for, we still live under capitalism reasons, I cannot afford to do so yet. So yes, the class costs $300 for these 5 weeks, unless you get a discount, and here's how you can get a discount. If you've been a previous participant of any of my classes, you get a discount. 30% if you've taken another class with me, so you do the maths of what that means, and 50% if you're retaking the same class. If you are a subscriber of my newsletter, which is hauntologies.net, you also get a discount. And this includes people who are no longer subscribers today. You just need to have been a subscriber at any point. If you're a paid subscriber, i.e. the regular tier, that's 50% off. If you're a founding member, i.e. the people who pay more on a yearly basis to support me, you get this for free, i.e. 100% off. Anyone joining the class will get access to all 5 sessions, of course, lifetime access to the Google Drive with links and resources continuously updated. These will include texts with my commentary, my dissertation, audio files, and video files. My dissertation here refers to the PhD, which is relevant to the topic of this class. You will get a lifetime access to the Hauntologies newsletter without paying extra if you want. The average paid subscribers pay roughly $50 a year, so you will get that as a complimentary thing. You don't have to pay extra. Discounts on future classes. As I've mentioned, you get 30% if you've taken another class with me. So this will apply for you if you take this class and if you want to take future classes. And an invitation to join a Signal group if you want. Okay, there are 4 other classes that I'm currently working on. Yes, 4. Oh my God, how's that possible? It is. Listen, as I said, there will be more classes to come. In addition to repeating this class, which I'm hoping to do, here are the titles and brief descriptions of the other classes currently being prepared. You can already register your interest by email, again, ayub@thefridaystimes.com, or Signal, again, ayub.02. You can register your interest by sending me a text or email to those as well, and I'll just send you an email or text when they're ready. Don't worry, you won't be spammed. I don't have time for that. I will be doing more detailed announcements in the coming months about these individual classes, but for now, here is what I can tell you. Class number 1, or technically 2, because the one I'm talking about now is number 1. So the next one, it's going to be called The Ghosts of Israel's Future, because I think that sounds cool as a title. It will be looking at what the horrors unleashed by Israel during the ongoing genocide in Gaza in Palestine reveal about that country's politics, and the people, Jews, Israelis, and Palestinians alike, who have predicted it. As the title suggests, we will also explore some of the ghosts that Israeli society is likely going to have to deal with, and why that's relevant for us all. The estimated fee for that one will be as with this class, so $300 for 5 sessions, and a minimum number of participants will be 5. The second class will be called Against Multipolar Imperialism, looking at why we cannot accept multipolarity as a valid alternative to a US-dominated world, especially as that involves accepting authoritarian states and effectively sacrificing whole populations as collateral, which is not good. We will look at China, Taiwan, Ukraine, Russia, within modern China, so-called Xinjiang and so-called Inner Mongolia, i.e. Southern Mongolia. We look at Hong Kong, at Syria, at Israel-Palestine, at Iran, at El Salvador, at Argentina, at Tigray and Ethiopia. Tigray as part of Ethiopia today, Bosnia, and of course Lebanon, among others. Estimated fee for that one is the same, $300 for 5 sessions, minimum participants also 5. The third class, or technically fourth class, will be called Canceling, and if all of this is confusing, by the way, it's in the description. Canceling the Apocalypse, from James Baldwin to solar punk and beyond. We'll be looking at the concept of radical optimism through James Baldwin, whose book, The Fire Next Time, influenced this podcast, The Fire These Times. See what I did there? And tracing it all the way to solarpunk today and positive stories as responses to the present tech-fueled dystopian hell that has been imposed on us all. Estimated fee for that one is also $300 for 5 sessions, minimum participants also 5. And lastly but not I genuinely don't remember what people say here. Last but not least. Nailed it. Post-war hauntings, modern Lebanon through its cinema. I'll probably find a nicer title. This will be a much more in-depth exploration of Lebanon, post-1990 through its cinema, which was the topic of my PhD dissertation. This gigantic thing that I'm looking at right now, and that I decided to do something with it. We will watch movies, discuss them, Lebanese movies obviously, discuss them, and explore Lebanon through them. It's a bit of cinema studies, a bit of cultural studies, a bit of critical theory, a bit of just let's talk about movies, and definitely lots of talking shit about modern Lebanese politics. Estimated fee for that one is more than the previous ones. It's $600 for 6 sessions, not 5. And minimum participants is 5. The reason it's more expensive is that this requires way more work on my part. As I mentioned already, as with this class, for each class you will get access to all of the sessions, lifetime access to the Google Drive with links, resources that are continuously updated. These will include text with my commentary, my dissertation, again the PhD, audio files and video files, a lifetime access to the Hauntology's newsletter, i.e. my newsletter, without paying anything extra, discounts on future classes, and an invitation to join a Signal group if you want. Folks, I'm really looking forward to this. A few of you have already registered interest. As I said, if you are interested, you don't even need to commit immediately, by the way. Just send me an email and I will send you the syllabus and the intention for that class and blah, 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 and how to pay. And you decide based on that whether you want to book a spot for yourself or not. As always, everyone, thank you for listening to The Fire These Times, and be kind to one another. Bye.